I tried to push the whole thing into the back of my mind. That was until Halloween night, a few weeks later. Good old All Hallows Eve. It was one of my favorite holidays ever. That Halloween night, I was doing what every kid should be doing. Trying to pack as much candy as humanly possible into one pillowcase in one night. My friends and I were trying to hit all the local neighborhoods we'd be able to mow down candy for months. However, my plans were ruined when we ran into my brothers and their previous foul-mouthed friends. My brothers took me aside and told me I had no choice but to show them the window of the room I had seen the Hoffmisters doing their deeds in. There was no arguing my way out of it, and I soon found myself back at that dreaded place. My brothers, their friends, and I stood in the Hoffmisters' yard on the side of their house. In the driveway were moving trucks. I wasn't surprised. Those people had been humiliated. I was actually really happy these creeps wouldn't be living down the street from where I sleep anymore. My brother, Darren, confirmed that they were moving away because of the rumors. Well, before I knew it, my brothers were forcing me to climb a tree to get a better look at the window on the side of the house. They wanted to see if there was anything batshit crazy that would be displaying. And of course, being the pushover that I was, I climbed that tree. It seemed like all was going well, until the light in the window shut off. This was the first sign that something was wrong. However, before I could get down from the tree and tell my brothers to piss off, we all heard the front door open. Of course, my brothers and their friends took off, leaving me up in the tree. Eileen must have heard them, because the next thing I knew, she was prowling the side of the house and examining the muddy footprints left by my brothers and their friends. This is it, I thought. I'm gonna accidentally snap a branch or fall or something, and she's gonna catch me. But by some miracle, Eileen didn't see me up in her tree and went inside. Well, I hightailed it out of there, leaving my pirate hat or my Halloween costume lying on the ground in their yard. I never even wanted to even look at the damn house again. I sprinted down my street and through my neighborhood, all the way down to the schoolyard, where my friends and I agreed we'd meet up after my brother's little sleep. And to my utter dismay, my friends were nowhere to be found. All I could say at that point was that my brothers had better still have had my damn candy in their possession. I looked around the schoolyard a bit more. Nothing. Not a sign of my friends. It must have been pretty late at that point. There weren't even trick-or-treaters on the streets anymore. I knew my parents were gonna kill me, so I started to head home. A walk home on Halloween night was the coolest thing ever. It was peaceful, spooky, and unsettling. All at the same time. I kinda liked that creepy feeling. It was what gave Halloween its charm. However, I really don't like the feeling of terror. Kind of like the terrifying feeling that came over me when I noticed that I was being followed by Leo Hoffmister's pickup truck. Great. Behind me were Eileen and Leo. Leo, of course, being the lapdog that he was driving. Eileen was sitting in the passenger seat. They knew I had spread those rumors. Who else could have? No one. I was their only visitor in their new home. I ran as fast as I could down the street, their old blue pickup truck continuing to cruise after me. I eventually veered off the sidewalk and into the woods. I ran faster than I ever had in my life that night. Dashing through the woods, I looked behind over my shoulder to see their truck, which was parked on the side of the road next to the woods. Holy shit, I thought. I'm dead. These people are nuts. Unfortunately, looking at their truck parked, I did not notice the fallen tree trunk in the middle of my path. And as you probably guessed, I tripped over it, knocking every last bit of air out of my lungs when I hit the ground. I crawled, gasping and wheezing for air, and the next thing I knew, the menacing figure of Eileen was standing over me. She looked so frightening in the moonlight, her grey, stinging hair being illuminated as the rest of her face remained dark and hidden. Even more frightening was when she held out my pirate hat and dropped it into my lap. Great, that was strike two for sticking my nose where it didn't belong, and somehow I got the feeling that I wasn't getting a third. "Aw, Patrick, you took a nasty fall," sneered Eileen. "Let us take you to our new house and take care of you. There, we'll make you feel healed and new." I pleaded with her, telling her that I was fine and I needed to head off. Of course she didn't listen. The witch clutched my wrist and dragged me out of the forest, over to their truck. I was dead meat. I was so freaking dead. Well, I would have been if it hadn't been for a passing neighbor who caught the two in the act of forcing me into their truck. Eileen and Leo managed to bullshit their way out of the situation before getting in their truck and quickly driving away, leaving me behind. I went home and told my parents about the entire ordeal. The cops were called, and after several days of searching, they stopped us to the location of the Hoffmeisters. According to them, they weren't at their old house, nor had they been at their new one. No record of apartments or hotel rooms were on file either. Those demon-worshipping, child-abusing scum had vanished off the grid. I was fine with that and decided to try and get on with my life, hopefully never even having to think about the Hoffmeisters again. However, it wasn't long before I began noticing some weird shit going on around my neighborhood. What do I mean by that, you ask? First off, there were a couple of instances where I would see a kid on the street walking up the road in a trance-like state. And where did they walk to? Why, none other than up that damn hill and into the dreaded Hoffmeister home. Keep in mind that I was paranoid at the time, and my bedroom window looked right out onto the street. So I was the only one noticing this stuff. At least the only one in my house. I tried telling my parents, but they were just annoyed by it, telling me to quit letting the fears get the best of me. I still haven't forgiven them for it to this day. And again, all I want to do right now is to tell them that I forgive them. The strange occurrences then began to take an even scarier turn. One night, I woke up to the whispering of my little sister Naz. I got out of bed to have a look. As I walked down the hall toward her room, I began to make out what she was saying. Things like, "Uh-huh," and "Okay, I'll go." I opened her door just in time to see her standing on her knees in her bed, staring out the window. However, that wasn't the scary part. The scary part was seeing a scrawny, female shadow being projected onto Nancy's bedroom wall by my bed. The second I called out to Nancy, the shadow seemed to scurry off. I rushed over to Nancy, asking her who she was talking to. My little sister hadn't the faintest idea of what I was talking about. I told my parents, and this time, my dad jumped out of bed at the prospect of someone standing outside of Nancy's window. However, we went outside to find no one. Well, I began to run my mouth again. You'd think I would have learned the first time around, so my brothers Darren and Bryce, along with their friends, started to develop a newfound interest in all this Eileen talk. Something about that creepy place at the end of the street amused them, gave them a rush. They loved that type of stuff. Another thing to know about Darren and Bryce was that they had a knack for sneaking out of the house on Saturday nights, something my parents hated but never really took enough action to prevent. And sure enough, my brothers and their friends snuck out one Saturday night to check out the old Hoffmeister house. This time, however, I wouldn't accompany them. But I sure came to know about it because after my brothers went missing that night, one of their friends who was smart enough to get out of there early on told me about it. The police went over to the Hoffmeister home, search warrant and all, to investigate, They found nothing there. Nothing. However, as usual, I continued to be the one making the terrifying discoveries. This time it was a VHS tape that I found sticking out of the VCR in my room one morning. Popping the tape in, the first thing I saw on the TV screen was a static shot of a cellar. The cellar was so dark and dingy looking, almost like a dungeon. Suddenly, the camera began to jiggle around a bit, and whoever was picking it up pointed it at none other than my brother, Darren. Darren was tied down to a chair, unconscious, looking bruised, battered, and abused. Boom! A loud yell from the camera person jolted Darren. The camera person was Eileen. She began to laugh sickly as Darren came to his senses. I immediately beginning to cry. Who the hell would do this to another human being, I thought. That was my brother, too. I watched in horror as she continued to verbally torment Darren, eventually getting physical, smacking him in his face, his chest, and eventually his groin. This woman was a sick, filthy pedophile. It wasn't until I saw Eileen begin to pull and sickle out of her pocket that I shut the tape off. Part of me wanted to go on. I had to know if Darren was dead, but couldn't watch. I couldn't bear to witness my brother get tortured like that. I rushed upstairs to my parents' room, leaving the VHS tape and the cassette player. However, my parents were gone. They had vanished. Oh shit, I thought. Am I next? Well, when I walked downstairs, I stopped dead in my tracks on the stairwell. My blood ran cold as I noticed Eileen half-pissed in my room and carefully removed the VHS tape from my VCR with latex gloves. She caught my stare. I swear, the second we made eye contact, my heart skipped a beat. She grinned at me in a way of saying, "I'll be back for you tonight." And just like that, the witch climbed out of my window and was gone. I rushed to Nancy's bedroom, now frightened out of my wits. Oh, thank God, Nancy was still there. She was sleeping soundly, at least until I woke her up. I ran in screaming and crying, probably scaring the poor girl to death. I didn't tell her about the videotape. I just told the police.